Okay, boys, welcome to another Cope and Castro on Sports podcast. Of course, we got Rob Castro and the venerable Dick Newman. And this podcast is going to be devoted strictly to the National Basketball Association. Rob, I can see you got the game on in the background. Looks like Washington's going to advance. They're blowing out Indiana there. And before we get into the playoffs, and there's a lot happening there, um, the class of 2021 Hall of Fame inductees were recently announced, and I didn't realize this, but the class of 2020, that induction ceremony was put on hold. So let's talk about the class of 2020 because of the pandemic. Clearly, let's talk about the class of 2020 before we get into 2021. So just freewheel here, boys. We got Chris Bosh, Tim Duncan, Rudy T, and of course, Kobe.
I think Chris Bosh is for 2021. Correct me if I'm wrong.
Uh,
I think Chris Bosh is 2021. He's coming in the next class this year.
it might be Rob because I see that I have him. I have him in both of my.
Yeah. Do you know what happens is once one Hall of Fame introduction finishes, they immediately name the ones for next year. I can do with the NFL.
Okay.
Sometimes the names cross over.
Yeah, and I can see I had him in both columns. So, what are your thoughts on? Well, let's go to 2020. Tim Duncan, Rudy Tomjanovich, and of course Kobe. Any thoughts on those guys, Sean?
Yeah, I mean, Rudy T for me is like one of these insanely underrated coaches, even though he is going to the Hall. Um, it wasn't just, yeah, he wasn't that great of a player, but he was a steady guy. But as a coach,
He wasn't that great of a what?
I didn't say he wasn't that great of a player, but I thought he was part of it.
I disagree with that. The guy was a 5-time All-Star. And usually 50% of NBA Hall of Famers, 50% make it in the Hall of Fame just by going to the All-Star at least 5 times. So he went to the All-Star game from 74 to 77 and then 1979. If it wasn't for freaking Kirkman Washington that broke his face open,
Yeah.
he might have gone to a few more All-Stars. So he was a pretty decent player.
Yeah, he was a pretty decent player, but I wouldn't put him in the Hall of Fame over that. And the point that I was going to make is that the Basketball Hall of Fame, the Naismith Hall of Fame, they let everybody in.
They do.
It's like a dozen guys, 20 guys, it feels like, are going in every year. So it doesn't feel as special as, I think baseball is almost too strict in terms of who they let in.
Yeah.
I think the NFL is a little closer to where it should be, where it's like, hey, we got like 5, 6, 7 guys going in. But the Basketball Hall of Fame is like, hey, everybody in. And that, I think, kind of waters it down. As a player, I don't know if I put Rudy in there, but definitely put him in there as a coach.
But I don't put him in as a player, but I disagree that he was not a very. I think he was a very good player. He made it to the All-Star game 5 times. You're above average, dude.
No. I think you just misunderstood me. Where the point that I was trying to make that I wouldn't put him into the Hall as a player.
Correct.
But I would put him into the Hall as a coach because
I super agree. I mean,
yeah, the work that he did as a coach like far exceeds like expectations. It far exceeds like what a lot. The guy that I keep thinking of when I think of Rudy is he's kind of just he's another version of Chuck Daly. Slick looking guy, gets along with the players really well. He could manage, big personalities by virtue of the fact that he was on Olympic teams and stuff like that.
Yeah.
I mean, the guy was a spectacular coach, a really good tactician. And the other thing I like about him is like when he was winning titles with the Rockets, it seemed like he was treating the regular season as if it was kind of like working their way through, gelling, working out who they were as an identity, and then in the playoffs it all came together. And not many coaches can pull something like that off, especially when you're looking from a 5 seed.
I agree. Listen, 2-time NBA champ. He also won gold in the 2000 Olympics, and he won bronze with FIBA. And so, as a coach, the guy is super solid. I mean, I feel for the guy. I think he got cancer a few years ago.
Oh, yeah. It was awful.
But I think he's well deserved to be in there for sure.
Yeah. I mean, his time as a player, just to clarify, his time as a player was really good. But I wouldn't put him in the Hall just because he made it to the playoff, made it to the All-Star game 5 times. Couple that with his coaching career, I think his coaching career far outstrips his playing career.
I agree with that.
But I wasn't trying to denigrate his playing career, not by any stretch. But my big thing was that the coaching thing is what really put him on the map.
Yeah. All right. I replaced Chris Bosh, and I omitted Kevin Garnett's thoughts on Kevin Garnett.
I mean, a freak of nature, straight out of high school.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, he was stuck in Minnesota for a while, but once he got to Boston and was playing with real talent, you saw what he could do. And I mean, one of the greatest ever to do it. He was so versatile too. I love this guy from the minute he came out of high school. And what All-Star game was that? I think it was 1995. That All-Star game was ridiculous, man. That All-Star game, you had the McDonald's game, McDonald's All-American game, you had Kevin Garnett, Vince Carter, Stephen Marbury, Antoine Jameson. Just that McDonald's All-American game.
Wow.
Some of those guys went to college. Vince Carter goes to North Carolina. You have Bob Pierce was also in that game.
Wow.
He ends up going to Kansas, and of course, Garnett goes to the NBA before they had the one and done. Amazing talent to me, freak. So it was cool for him to win a championship.
Yeah, it wasn't just cool for him to win a championship. It was like, I know that we're going to talk about Pierce later on, but when Garnett got to Boston, he could really flourish because he didn't have to do everything on the team. And Garnett was allowed to be a power forward. He was allowed to bang high and low. He could go in and score and rebound. He didn't have to be the one guy who was carrying the team like what happened up in Minnesota. And you look at his career and it's like, holy shit, this guy played 20 seasons.
Right.
1,462 games. The guy was just a machine. Even toward the late end of his career, it was like he was still long and strong. He didn't have the speed and the quickness that he did or the agility, but he was still an effective player for the most part. And, this is the sort of guy to where it was like, okay, in his rookie year, you see him scoring only 10.4 points. His second year, it was 17 points. But I remember watching him in 96, 97 and going, this guy's going to go to the fucking Hall of Fame. This guy's going to be a winner somewhere. He's going to carry somebody somewhere.
And it seemed that not to jump in, but it seemed like Garnett was like the first really tall player to prefer to play outside versus bang down inside. He was kind of like that, like a 7-footer, but he was okay shooting. He didn't shoot 3-pointers, I don't remember very often, but he would shoot like 20-footers, 22-footers. He wouldn't be that 7-footer who played with his back towards the basket. He preferred to face the basket and kind of make some moves down there. And that was more of his game. Would you guys kind of agree with that, Rob?
I super agree with that. And he also started that trend of like, hey, I'm just going to skip college and go to the NBA.
Yeah.
He doesn't necessarily take the credit per se, but he was one of the first Mohicans to do that. Just go up there and just like, hey, I'm going to do this. And then you start seeing the Kobe Bryants, the Jermaine O'Neal, all these people just hopping to the NBA. But yeah, I agree. And his game was so like fluid too.
Yes. Yes.
But fluid, but he got handled. He got it all, man. He's super first ballot, of course, Hall of Famer.
Yeah, the thing about Garnett that I always admired was, it wasn't just the fact that he was the quote unquote trendsetter with like being one of these guys who, bypassed college, because the ABA did that with like Moses Malone.
Mm-hmm.
But Garnett having the balls to do it when he did do it, and knowing that it was like, hey, I'm going to get playing time. Let's take a look at what he did. He was getting 28.7 minutes per game in his rookie year when he was only 19 years old. That right there says everything.
Yeah.
About what his actual talent level was. There was no denying that this guy was it. And the other guy that I keep thinking about in my head is him and Dirk. They were both guys who played face to the basket like that.
Yes.
And they came from completely different backgrounds, but they had such similar games where I would be watching Dirk games, later in Dirk's career when he finally finally won a title with Dallas. And I was like, holy shit, it's like watching the yin and yang. It's like, here's the black guy, Kevin Garnett, and here's the white guy, Dirk Nowitzki, but you can almost like transfer their games back and forth in terms of the way that they play.
Yeah.
I don't think either guy would like want to admit that, but it was almost like watching carbon copies of each other when they were, both of them could hit. I think Dirk had a better fall-away jumper, and Garnett was more aggressive getting to the basket most of the time,
Mm-hmm.
but just unbelievable power out there on the floor. There was nothing else like him out there.
And there was a time where Kevin Garnett was the highest paid player in the NBA, even ahead of the great Shaquille O'Neal. Hey, Rob, tell me what you remember about Tim Duncan's game.
Dude, Tim Duncan, man, this guy, first round pick. Some people have this guy as a top 5.
Sure.
Like such a quiet, stoic way to wait. He went about everything, just about the work. First round pick coming out of Wake Forest, and what's crazy that Boston that year had the larger, the biggest odds of landing the number 1 pick.
Okay.
They were at 36% or something like that. And San Antonio landed. So when I think San Antonio that year had a terrible record with the Arm Roll, they were like 20 and 62. They had a under 500 record. Once they got Duncan, it changed the course of history.
Yeah.
Not only Duncan becomes what he is, but he probably made the San Antonio Spurs a top 3 franchise. That's saying like Lakers, Boston, and San Antonio.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? That's how powerful this guy is. So they were not doing it with the arm. And I mean, what else can you say? This guy just kind of holds to this franchise. He's just an amazing guy. I mean, all around. So I saw his Hall of Fame speech growing up in the Virgin Islands, and I was just touched by it. And I mean, there's nothing else to say, but it's great, man. It's great. First ballot.
Yeah, when he was growing up, apparently he was a swimmer, but the Olympic pool that he worked out in got destroyed in the hurricane. But the other anecdote that I really liked was when, because it was early on in Pop's coaching career, and they get lucky enough to get him. And Duncan was talking about how when Popovich came to visit, that they didn't talk basketball at all.
Oh, that's right.
And this is why I love Popovich. He shows up, he hangs out with Tim Duncan and his family, and all they did was talk like normal human beings. There was no moments of all right, now when you get to San Antonio, it's going to be like this, blah, 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 blah. It was just hanging out, barbecuing, drinking beers, whatever they were doing. That was it. And that's a really endearing quality of Pop. And Pop he was able to center that team around Duncan. Having Duncan was like having the luxury of having, say, Bill Russell or Kareem on your team. And in terms of the way that Duncan played, I mean, we didn't get to see him live, but from the film and the stories and the stats that you look at, Russell is the closest analogy that I can think of, even though, Duncan was a power forward versus a center. But he would play with his back to the basket a lot.
Mm-hmm.
Incredible defense. He was a really good rebounder. He never scored more than 23 points a game in a season. But he was the oldest guy ever to have a 20 and 20 game. I think in his second year, he out-rebounded Dennis Rodman in a game, head-to-head against the Bulls. Where he came down with 22 rebounds against fucking Rodman. And the court vision that he had, how quiet he was, we're going to get to Kobe. He's another guy. 19 seasons with the same team. He never went anyplace. And that's a rarity. And, a lot of that is a testament, not just to Duncan, but also to the relationship that he had with Popovich. And when you're able to have a guy like Duncan who was so fluid, so fundamentally sound, you can tell that this is a guy who's doing his drills on a regular basis. That's such a great workout. There wasn't a hole in his game. Everything about his game was solid. There wasn't anything.
And his attitude too, man. I saw Pop bench him a couple times, and I never saw him complain to the media. His attitude was just wow, man. You rarely see that anymore.
I don't know that anybody had better fundamentals. The better fundamentals. His game was just solid all the way around, and what stands out to me about him is his touch off the glass. his touch off the glass. It was incredible. Yeah, Tim Duncan, another just a phenomenal player. Go ahead, Sean.
One last thing I want to bring up on Duncan. He was the last of the first rounder who played all 4 years
Right.
of college.
Yeah.
Rarity.
Yeah.
The last one. No one will ever do that again if he first overall.
Okay, so and then we get to considered one of the greatest shooting guards of all time, and I don't know what to think about the guy because he was kind of a dick. Let's be honest. And there was that situation in Colorado, and Sean, you know a lot about that. The one and the only Kobe Bryant. I'm sure Sean will have a lot to say. So, Rob, let's begin with you and your thoughts about Kobe Bean Bryant.
I mean, what else can you say? One of the greatest ever. The closest thing to Michael Jordan. Even the way he modeled his basketball game. But I'll say this: when you are the Lakers leading scorer, and you have Kareem, Magic, the logo, Elgin Baylor, it says fucking a lot. You know what I mean? It's insane. Like you're just in a different hemisphere. And what's crazy about Kobe, for a while he was very hated because of the way he carried himself, that Colorado thing. You either loved him or you hated him. It was like the onion. You either like it or you don't. And after he crashed, he's dead. People started to be very sentimental, but that kind of disappeared with the whole pandemic thing.
Yeah.
He came and went.
Yeah.
He was like, Kobe's forgotten. You know what I mean? We're thinking of like the world might just end tomorrow.
Yeah.
I saw Vanessa's speech on Saturday, and it was very touching. But listen, this guy is in that category of the Jordans, the Magics. What else he said? You're the Lakers leading scorer. That's it. Because they've had just go to Staples Center and look at the banners. Just look at the banners.
Yeah.
Look at the jerseys hanging, and you'll know what kind of talent he's up against. And that's incredible.
Everybody knows that I'm a massive Lakers fan, but I've always had a problematic relationship with my fandom, and the whole Kobe thing. And the viewpoint on Kobe has softened over the years. But remember, also everybody wanted Kobe to be the next Jordan. Coming off of the Jordan years, that was like what people were conditioned for. It was like, where's the next Jordan going to come from? Kobe was kind of anointed that. And I read an interview where Jordan was talking about their relationship, and they were apparently very close. Kobe always called him up for advice and whatnot. And I was working on Outside the Lines at the time when Kobe Bryant's rape trial went down. So I don't want to get too far into it, but some of the stuff that came up was really disturbing. And as just a human being who empathizes with people who were victims of sexual assault, it was something that really affected me. And really, it definitely changed the way that I perceived Kobe Bryant. And that is something that just kind of always stuck in my craw. While I can't deny his greatness on the court, it definitely colored my viewpoint of this guy as a person. And that's just something that it's hard to separate that. But in terms of his play on the court, if we're just going to talk about that stuff, a superlative shooting guard, one of the best scorers that I've ever seen. But he was not the sort of guy, like people talk about, Mamba energy and all that. I've always had a kick out of that because it's like he's not the sort of guy that can carry a team for lengthy stretches of time. He couldn't win a title all by himself. Like every other team, he needed Shaquille O'Neal or Pau Gasol to help him get over the hump. And I understand him and Shaq having their, they got the massive ego, totally get that. And I think that's a fun story. But even Shaq has softened to that point where he's like, yeah, man, it's like my little brother. And he was incredibly sad and, overtaken with emotion when Kobe passed away. There's nothing that you can do to say that Kobe isn't a Hall of Fame. All-time great? Is he on the same level as Jordan? I don't quite put him up there. Do I put him above Magic Johnson? I don't know about that. But I know that I get, not burned at the stake in this town in LA, but I would just have a lot of people go, man, you're fucking crazy. You're out of your mind because everybody loves Kobe.
I mean, in LA, he has such a fan base, such a following that when the rumors were floating around on LeBron going to LA, there were actual people calling sports radio going, fuck LeBron.
Yeah.
It's a Kobe town.
Yeah.
I'm like, dude, are you crazy? Like, he's gonna get you a championship. So just like back off. I know you love Kobe, but just relax. But yeah, he had that kind of love too. You know, people just were in love with this guy because his drive was just toxic. I mean, not toxic. It was just something that people gravitated towards. And I know you're always saying that. Listen, he couldn't do it all by himself, but I don't know one athlete that can. I mean, Jordan had a pretty great team as well. And they were a team. He got Phil Jackson. I know Kobe needed Shaq, but Kevin Garnett had to leave Minnesota and join Ray Allen and Paul Pierce.
Yeah.
So you do need the talent. LeBron had to leave Cleveland and go to Miami. So at the end of the day, there's not one man that could do it all. So, but he is to me top 10 all time, if not that, like closer to the 5. Like he is
I don't even put him in my all-time top 10. And this is like the personal stuff aside, but in terms of like looking at the players and whatnot, yeah, great. But if you're going to put together like your all-time top 10, your 12-man team of all the greats, yeah, there's other guys that I'd probably take over Kobe, and for various reasons. But back to that thing about, he couldn't do it all by himself. Of course he could. But the myth that's built up around him is that he was so clutch and so ice cold and cold blooded. They make it sound like he did it all by himself. It's almost like the same myth that they came up with Jordan. And it doesn't rub me the wrong way or anything. I just kind of like sit back and kind of like chuckle a little bit at it. But that's the mythology, especially here in Los Angeles. Like, it's like Kobe ride or die. And I've always been like Lakers ride or die. Like, I'm happy as a pig in mud that we got LeBron. But LeBron can't do it all by himself either. He needs AD,
Sure.
Yeah.
I mean, all you gotta look is the season that they didn't have AD, they didn't make the playoffs. The season that he played with AD, they won a championship.
Yeah,
That was
that
clear.
Yeah.
Just that, I mean, go from not making the playoffs, lottery team, with championship. So,
absolutely.
And I don't know if it's going to happen, but there was talk because of Kobe's tragic demise about him, about the NBA, or I don't think the NBA was even involved. People talking about how Kobe should replace Jerry West as the logo. I'm sure you guys heard that. We'll see. Right.
But I don't think that's happening.
No.
That's just silly.
Yeah.
That's just silly.
I mean, they could name like the most improved player award. They could name an award after him.
I mean, if you were going to change the logo to anybody, though, it would be Jordan over Kobe or anybody else in terms of the impact that they have on the marketing of the league. MJ, Larry Bird, or Magic Johnson, any of those three guys would be way more deserving of Kobe.
Sure.
And that's why when we talk about like the all-time top 10 greats, he's there in the top 10 of like shooting guards. But in the history of the NBA, there's a couple other shooting guards that I like. I would maybe consider Dr. J better than Kobe, even though he doesn't have all the rings. So, but that's the fun part about sports. We can have these debates over and over and over again because that's what keeps it going.
Yeah, and I think wasn't Kobe's defense pretty damn good as well? I think he was. He was a hell of a defensive player. So let's move on from 2020 and let's see if we can blow through the class of 2021 pretty quickly here. Chris Bosh, Paul Pierce, and of course I left off some guys, but Chris Webber. Okay. Chris Webber. All right.
Listen, I want to talk about Chris Webber because I love this guy, and I'm not going to talk about his. I'm not going to talk about his NBA career, but his basketball career. He probably had a bigger impact on me than any of the basketball players that we mentioned.
Okay.
We all wear black socks in the quarter because of the Fat Five. There was not a cooler team in the hardwood. Maybe UNLV running Rebels, but they were like the U in the playing basketball. They were that good. I mean, he still gets heckled for his timeout he had against North Carolina with 11 seconds, remember?
Yeah.
And, I think I read something recently that when he joined TNT, and they were joking with him, and they asked him, hey, Chris, you don't have any timeouts in college? He goes, what? I still don't know. He's so relaxed about it. And he's a pretty cool guy. And
Yeah.
he's one of all these like inner city black kids coming together, wearing the baggy shorts and the black socks. And they've all had pretty successful careers. Chris Webb in his spare time goes to Wake Forest and teaches classes. You see Jalen Rose working at ESPN. He also calls games for TNT. Dwight Howard back at Michigan. He took him to the Final Four. So
yeah, Rob, but we're not electing him to the Hall of Fame because he's done all these wonderful things off the court.
But listen, but if you look at his numbers, he didn't win a ring, but he's
No.
deserving of the Hall of Fame. And Sean said it earlier. Basketball loves to just let everyone in. You know what I mean? Like they'll just let anybody in. I mean, but if you look at his numbers, he had kind of like a tough road. He got drafted by Golden State.
Right.
He had a pretty decent year as a rookie. Then, when he went to Sacramento, that team was built to kind of go to the finals, but he had to face the Lakers.
Yeah.
And some people think that is very controversial. Some people think that actual series is very lopsided with referee calls. Like
Because it was.
Yeah.
It was.
You know what I mean?
I'm a Lakers fan, and I was at ESPN. Like I remember watching Game 7. I was working on the news desk that night, and we were sitting there. We're watching that game, and in the fourth quarter, we were like, "The fix is in." At least it felt that way. Like it was just so fucking obvious, and it breaks my heart because Weber. First of all, this is the sort of guy that when he came out of college, he had Hall of Fame written all over him no matter what. Unless he was going to have a career-ending injury, like early on in his career, you could tell that this guy was going to beat somebody. And he definitely was. The power, the speed, the athleticism, court vision, being able to move from center to power forward, and the athleticism and the smarts on the court. It was just, but the fact that guy never got a shot at a ring, it's heartbreaking. And as you brought up, he's got such a good sense of humor about himself. It's a Hall of Fame, like, sense of humor and self-deprecation. I love it.
Paul Pierce. Any thoughts on Paul Pierce and his game? Yes, sir.
More than 20,000 points in his career. You got to put him in just for that. 20,000 points and all the buckets, dude.
Yeah.
Since he was in high school, he was a stud.
Yeah.
McDonald's All-American. I mentioned the squad he played with earlier. And dude, the guy, he got that nice run with Garnett and Ray Allen. So he's a shooting Hall of Famer.
Yep. Sean?
My thing with him is that he was a quieter superstar than some of these other guys. He was more he was a little bit more brash than say Tim Duncan, but he wasn't as brash as Garnett. Remember when Garnett, he was like, before some big game, he's like, "Yeah, we're strapping up, going out there with the AK-47."
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
I remember he getting a fucking wild kick out of that. But Pierce wasn't the flashiest player in the world, but he was already great before Garnett got there and before he was playing with Ray Allen. But when you put the three of them together, and all three of them did different things on the court, and you can see them really shine and really like blossom into the Hall of Fame caliber guys that they are, all together when they went on their quick little title run where it was like we're starting to get later in their careers, and it's like, hey, we're starting to leave our prime pretty soon, and really they just blossomed so well. Garnett being able to like get down low and inside. You got Ray Allen hitting from the outside. Pierce can cut in. He can also pull you on the back door, and he can also pull up jumpers. It was a pleasure to watch that. Even though I can't fucking stand the Celtics, it wasn't quite as enjoyable as watching the '86 Celtics, which I think was the best passing team I've ever seen. But those Celtics teams, when those three guys were together, was an absolute joy to watch with pure basketball.
Okay. Let's go to you and take it down to South Beach. We know that maybe the first, I don't know, what do they call that? The mega teams or whatever they call that when we get all these stars together. What are they called again?
The super team.
Yeah, super teams. Maybe one of the very first, modern day super teams. Dwayne Wade, LeBron James, and of course the inductee class of 2021, Chris Bosh. Rob, your thoughts on Chris Bosh?
I love Bosch. I mean, if you want to talk numbers, okay, make him wait. If not, listen, this kid was Mr. Texas all basketball in high school. He's lived up to the hype wherever he went. He gets drafted in the strongest body NBA class ever, 2004, which had LeBron James, Carmelo Anthony, Dwayne Wade. He gets drafted number four by Toronto. People forget how good he was with Toronto.
He was good.
Five-time All-Star. So this is where I give him credit. When he joins the Heatles in Miami, he joins that trio. He had to tailor his game, dude. His average went down. Just because of that, and that's the only reason why Pat Riley retired his jersey number one and put it up, because the guy never really complained about that. So he was an excellent teammate, and if you wanted to play alone and score all those points, he could have done it. He proved that in Toronto. So you see a Hall of Famer? Of course he's gonna win. Did he go in at this early? Hey man, let's go back to what we've been saying. Everybody just love to throw people in there.
Yeah.
Being a Heat fan, I want to see him in the Hall of Fame for sure.
Yeah, I mean, it's so heartbreaking that his career got cut short.
Mm-hmm.
With a heart problem. But the thing about Bosch that was always so impressive to me was his length and athleticism getting down the court. The fact that he could not just outrun guys, but he could outthink guys when he was out on the break, or whether he was up at the top of the key. And he was so versatile that you could throw this guy in at the 1, you could throw him in at the 3, or you could put him in at the 4. It didn't matter where no matter where you put this guy on the floor, he would excel for you because he was so adaptable. And when you've got, a precision Swiss Army knife like him, that's the way that I always thought of Bosch. Was that he's like a well-made leather man, and doesn't bitch, he doesn't complain. He'll play whatever role that needs to be done. If you need to get rebounds from him, you need to play defense, he can do that. Oh, you need him to fucking run the fast break, he can do that too. Oh, you need him to get down low and get rebounds and score, putbacks, whatever. He was game for all of it, and he could do all of it. And that's such a rare quality that you see in ball play. So whether or not he should be in that, fucking no-brainer.
Yeah.
He's got no-brainers. It's just that we still like to joke about how it's like, the Naismith Hall was just like anyone is.
Well, another player with great fundamentals, right? Chris Bosh, just an all-around great game. Ben Wallace, I believe he.
But check this out. Only 4 players have won the Defensive Player of the Year. It's Dikembe Mutombo 4 times. They won it 4 times Defensive Player of the Year. Dikembe Mutombo and Ben Wallace.
Okay.
Also, he had that great championship run, if you guys remember.
Yep.
They suffocated the Lakers in 2003, 2004.
Yep.
So he's got a couple of rings to his credit. 4-time Defensive Player of the Year. I mean, what else can I say? It's
undrafted.
Yeah.
Right? He was. I don't think he was. Yeah, I don't think he was. I don't think he was drafted. I think he was like a free agent signing or something like that. Sean.
I think he's a far superior defensive center than anyone I can think of in the last 20 years. And the guy that I keep thinking of him.
20 years?
Yeah.
I mean, have you watched The Greek Freak lately, or have you watched The Kid Running in Philadelphia lately?
Yeah, of course I have.
Okay. Let's not throw names here.
Time out.
Okay.
Let's let their careers play out, and let's give Ben credit for being what he was.
I just said
over the last.
Defensive champion of the year. Only Mutombo has done that. But you'll get Joel Embiid and he'll hit a 3 in your face as well. I mean, it's a different game now.
There was also a time when Dwight Howard was the best defensive center in the game. When he was like swatting balls.
Dwight Howard was the best defensive for like 2 seconds. When he was in Orlando. Dwight Howard was the biggest. I mean, come on.
We're like 2 or 3 seasons. But the thing was, but Ben had great court vision. Yeah, and he was a no drama style Dennis Rodman kind of guy. And him getting into the Hall is analogous at least in my mind, to an offensive lineman or a defensive tackle getting in the NFL Hall of Fame. Like, he doesn't have gaudy numbers. He does have those 4 Defensive Player of the Year awards.
His rebounding.
Yeah, and he's got rebounding. But do guys necessarily get into the Hall of Fame strictly on their rebounding numbers?
No.
It's got to be on the all-around game. And Wallace definitely has that.
And he brought that bad boy mentality that they were missing since 1990. They hadn't won a championship since 2003. They resemble so much the bad boys that with that Larry Brown team.
Yeah.
And they have Rip Hamilton.
Rip Hamilton.
Really blue collar type team, and so throw them in there.
Throw them in. And let's get some quick thoughts on another great coach, Rick Adelman.
This guy, honestly, I think it was just odd. He had to face the biggest opponents. Listen, we remember
Lakers.
sporting teams. Who's he have to face in the sporting teams?
Lakers.
Michael Jordan and the Bulls, and the bad boy Pistons. Then I think he goes over to Sacramento. He has to face Phil Jackson and the Lakers.
Yep.
Then he goes to Houston.
Yep.
And in Houston, he got that 22-0 record that everybody was trying to break. I think that he broke it years later. And Yao Ming was hurt and then he loses to the Lakers again.
Yeah.
So he was always against this competition that he couldn't get over that hump. And definitely a Hall of Famer. Over 800 games won in his career. I mean, this guy's a shoo-in for sure. 800 is a lot of games, to win. So, I love Rick Adelman, man.
Yeah, there's going to be some assholes out there who be like, well, he couldn't beat Phil. He couldn't beat this guy. It's like,
I think Phil called him a Nazi. I think Phil called him a Nazi.
I can see that. But I could see Phil calling a lot of people Nazis.
Yeah.
It's like, Adelman to me always struck me as a little bit of an authoritarian type kind of guy. But that's not why they lost. They would end up going up against superior teams. And at the end of the day, getting past those kind of clubs, it takes having a special player on your team to do that. And as you mentioned with Yao being hurt, Yao didn't last very long in the league. And T-Mac being hurt, as you mentioned. Yeah. Oh, and here's a fun fact, Dave. Guess where Rick Adelman went to high school?
I don't know. Drawing a blank.
St. Pius X in Downey, California.
Oh, that's fun. That's where Pepe went.
Yeah.
For a little bit. All right, so let's talk about some of the games. We just saw the Bullets. I like to call them Bullets still. Bullets just thrashed the Pacers. What are you guys' general impressions of this play-in series, Rob? What are your thoughts on it?
Listen, like I said 2 weeks ago, players bitch about it, but to the fans, I love it. It puts up the ratings right last time were off the charts. I mean, come on, are you kidding me? The best ratings you guys ever had in a while. Why wouldn't you have this? And I think it's just amazing. I love the playing tournament. I was surprisingly shocked that the actual Washington just blew Indiana. I thought that game would be a lot closer, to be honest.
Yeah.
I thought Sabonis had an amazing game the previous one, and I didn't think, and actually Washington had lost, and then they go with the criticism again. Oh, Westbrook could do all these triple doubles, but he can't win. He's an answer to his team. So I'm glad he won, but I thought this game would be a lot closer.
I'm not a big fan of these play-ins.
Okay.
I get the ratings going up because fans, oh shit, excitement, ooh, play-in, win this one. If you lose, you have to do all the excitement. Well, you're also fucking with your product, which is the players on the floor. And for instance, last night, Memphis wins. They got to travel overnight and get to Golden State to go and play the Warriors the very next night. Which means that if Memphis were to win that game and they go all effort out on the court, when they go into the first round series and they're facing a top end seed, they're going to be depleted, which means that there's less of a chance for there to be an upset in the first round. They're not going to be. They're going to be gassed. They're not going to be as well prepared.
I get that, but I mean, didn't the players in the 70s and 80s did this constantly? They played back to backs. So this whole trend started like maybe 10, 15 years ago. Coaches and players bitching like, "Hey, man," and I understand that basketball season is grueling. I get that, but listen, dude. At the end of the day, I don't see that at Memphis. Like, I don't think that's the obstacle why they might get bounced out of there.
I just think it's a dumb way to manage these finely tuned players. Listen, the NBA in the 1970s was a hell of a lot different than it is today. A hell of a lot different in terms of the athletic.
Okay, but the 80s was way more physical. You could now
you weren't necessarily playing back to back where you got to like get on a plane.
You were playing back to backs in the 80s? Are you kidding me? Dude, it was major back to back, and it was the most physical game we've seen. Right now, you sneeze on LeBron, you're gonna go to the foul line. Like it's like the whole physicality stopped like 15 years ago. Like nowadays, Popovich ship players for the playoffs for a while, and fans were complaining that they bought season tickets and they couldn't see their players. Listen, the reason why I like
that's a fucking smart thing to do. Look, you can talk all you want about, oh, well, they did it back in the 80s. You know what? It was fucking stupid to do that with the players back then. You're increasing the risk of injury because playing a fucking basketball game on back-to-back night, no matter whether they did it in the 80s or the 70s or any other time, it's not a smart way to be fucking around with your multi-billion-dollar franchise and multi-million-dollar.
They don't make it 83 games, make it 65 games.
Yeah, absolutely, I agree with you. Right
okay,
there.
And make the first round of the playoffs only best of 5. What do you have to make it best of 7?
Now we're on the same page.
Okay, but
now we're on the same
page. This is why I give the NBA credit. The NBA is always trying to market its product, make it very progressive.
Well, it's really simple. You want to go ahead and generate a couple of more games where there's going to be tickets that are going to be sold. You're getting families in the seat. You're getting ratings on television. You're pumping a few more games into the system. I mean, that's what it is. It's about the owners saying, we just want to be able to squeeze a little bit more money out because, we got killed over the past year. And we're totally unwilling to dip into our own equity. We need a cash infusion. I mean, that's really what it is. And they're doing it at the expense of their commodity, their assets, if you want to put it that way, in purely capitalistic terms. For fucking players. You don't want to be beating up your fucking players when they're worth millions and millions and millions of dollars. So I get the excitement side of it. I just don't see the smarts in doing it.
I thought the game last night was it's a game 7, pretty much, kind of.
Yeah.
I mean, it has that game 7, and who doesn't love game 7s? So
I am not arguing that.
So to me, this tournament brings a new thing to basketball, this new excitement. Yeah.
And I would compare that to a hit to cocaine, and wow, man, this is fucking fun. But what is the damage that can? Not that occasionally doing drugs is gonna fucking murder you or whatever, but going ahead and saying, yeah, man, that was really fucking fun to watch. I would not want to see that long term in terms of how it's going to affect the playoff. Because a team that comes out of a play-in tournament that goes in, this isn't fucking NCAA. This is the NBA, man. These guys are bigger, stronger, faster, etc. Coming out of a play-in tournament, you're going up against the rest of the team. You're fucked.
Yeah, well, I watched that Lakers Warriors game like everybody else, and when that game concluded, two things came to mind. One is fucking Steph Curry is the best shooter of all time, and we've known that already. He's clearly still, I would say he's on the back nine of his career, but he's still a phenomenal player. And I'm really interested to see what happens when they get Klay Thompson back. And maybe that Wiggins kid can play a little bit, get Klay Thompson back, maybe sign another free agent. But I want to move on to our next topic, which is the Lakers. Are they in trouble?
I don't think they're in trouble because for the simple fact that the Lakers have not played together. You had to see Curry go crazy and the Warriors play a perfect game to so freaking Jeff Bezos look alike, acting like you know what I mean? And it just makes
Alex Caruso's offensive genius.
you know.
I like Caruso's game.
So I don't think the Lakers are in trouble. Plus the West right now, they're going up against Phoenix. Phoenix is a nice team, but they're very young, dude. Utah's very young as well, so I think the Lakers have the upper hand. Maybe they face the East, and if they want to face the big three with, Durant, Harden, and Kyrie, or maybe they face the Greek Freak. But I think the Lakers come out of the West, to be honest. No, that's if they don't get injured. If you lose LeBron or AD, they're done.
Lay repeat. The Lakers are this funny team where it's like, okay, they won the title last year, then you got a shortened offseason. And I don't want to sit here and question whether or not AD and LeBron were actually like hurt and whatnot. But is it a matter of they rest for the last like 3-4 weeks, and it's like, hey, let's go ahead and make a playoff push and like throw everybody into the mix? They look fucking rusty as hell last night.
Yeah.
They did not look good on offense. They looked great on defense.
Yeah.
They were smashing on the board. They were clogging the lane. They were playing great on defense. But they were playing like shit on offense.
Yeah.
So, and with AD and LeBron being out for the long stretches that they've been for these last few weeks, that's where my concern is. I have zero concerns about the defensive side. It's the offensive side. Or they, because there were stretches where they were like 2 for 22 from the field. They would go like 5 minutes without making a bucket.
Right.
And the Warriors, they were only, I think the largest lead the Warriors had all last night was 13 points.
Mm-hmm.
And most of the time it felt like, holy shit, the Lakers should be down by like 25.
Yeah.
So put them up against a competent shooting team, a team that isn't just Steph Curry fucking flying from downtown, and you got a couple more guys who can score. God only knows.
Yeah.
So,
and I think Rob.
Going back to your point, I don't think that we're just sitting on AD. I think LeBron was really hurt. You saw his ankle get twisted a couple times. Dude, he looked bad a couple times.
No. I think you misunderstood me because there's been a lot of speculation out there among the Twitterverse and, pop culture and people out there on social media to where it's like, oh, well, LeBron, how come LeBron was actually hurt and so was AD?
He was hurt. LeBron doesn't want to really rest. LeBron is trying to go after Kareem's record for most points all the time.
Mm-hmm.
He wants to break it in a Lakers uniform. So him resting, that means he's going to have to add to another season. So LeBron
and LeBron is also not the sort of guy who's going to, like, take games off. In spite of, like, what all of my friends might say, what all the guys who are out there might say, press, whatever, behind his back, LeBron is an incredibly competitive guy. He wants to be out there on the floor.
Oh, yeah.
He doesn't want to take the nights off.
Yeah.
And for him to actually even...
It was so clutch, too.
Yeah. Oh, well, that's the thing. It's like without that wild-ass shot at the end of the game, the Lakers might be playing tonight against Memphis. I mean, let's just be honest with ourselves. They were 1 or 2 plays away from having to fucking play tonight and said they're going to get a couple of nights off. So,
and I think also going back to what they said, I think if Klay Thompson is in that game, I think he might have a different outcome as well. Klay Thompson could play some defense and he could shoot that rock. So, yeah.
And I think that game's tomorrow night. I think it's tomorrow night.
I thought it
tomorrow night.
I thought it was tonight. I was very mistaken on that.
Yeah. But I want to kind of touch on one thing Rob said before we move on. The Lakers signed Andre Drummond clearly, and AD, LeBron, and Andre, they haven't had a chance to play together yet. I mean, because remember when Andre got signed, he came in with that turf toe or that toe injury, and he immediately went out, and then the chips started falling for the Lakers. So.
Was also out. Like they've had all kinds of injuries, and this is why I didn't like the turnaround being such a quick turnaround. I blamed it. Why do you think the Heat right now is a 6 seed? They almost had to be in the playing tournament when they went to the finals last year. They're still gassed out. They've been going through all kinds of injuries. So you can't just turn a season like this, and just have them play. I would have waited until January to start it, but whatever.
Yeah, no. not that you're not wrong. It's just that I'm skeptical of the idea that the Lakers can somehow just put it all together like that. You know,
Well, if there's a sport that you can, it's basketball.
No, the sport that you can do that in is baseball.
Yeah.
It's so luck dependent, but basketball is much more dependent on
the superstar which they have.
No. It's not just a superstar. I mean, think about it this way, Rob. So in baseball, if you've got a bunch of guys who are seeing the ball well and they're hitting the ball well, or you got a pitcher who gets hot, you can dominate a series. You know, and it's such a luck thing.
But you're saying the key word here, I don't want to disagree with you. You're saying the key word luck. Basketball is really not based on luck. Because Kobe could say, you know what? I'm going to drive this to the rim. This is why when you get the superstar, you win games.
Right. But even when you have the superstar in there, what's one of the central tenets of basketball? It's being able to read each other's moves and know where the other guy is going to be able to instinctually, just by a look or a shift of a shoulder or point or whatever, they know where to put the ball or they know where this
So
guy's
I have a question for you. Why are the Brooklyn Nets the number 2 seed and Kyrie, the Beard, and Durant only have played 8 games together? Because it's called talent, dude. The talent in the NBA just overrides anything. That's why when they got AD with LeBron, you went from being a lottery team to a championship team. Baseball is super luck dependent. Oh my God, really?
Yeah, you know what? But here's the thing I got to tell you, Rob, where at least this is from my perspective, is that I look at the Nets and I see a team that's fully capable of falling apart.
Big time. But they've only played 8 games together.
I don't know.
They could completely fall apart.
I don't know. They look pretty good.
Or they could end up fucking, making a deep ass run.
Yeah.
It depends on, they're a coin flip to me. And right now the Lakers have all the talent in the world, but they haven't had enough time to actually play together.
Correct.
To really mesh.
Yeah,
Last year when they were in the fucking bubble, when they were in the playoffs, they were fucking muddy. They were fucking muddy in the playoffs.
Yeah.
And they were fucking.
But also the competition in the playoffs was not as hard. Like some people think that the Lakers benefit from the bubble because, for example, they had that whole turmoil with the Clippers. Some teams were not taking it as serious. They were willing to back out of the bubble. They didn't want to leave their families for so long. So they were money, but now it's going to come the true challenge. If they're healthy, I think they'll win. But hey, listen, Phoenix, they're young, but they're a tough little team. Utah, they're young, but they're a tough team. Dave Lillard could come out any day and shoot like threes, lights out like Steph Curry from half court, and he's kind of dangerous. So, but to me, they're still the best team in the NBA. When you have LeBron James playing with AD, it's almost unfair. Like that's it. Like I mean, all you need is Caruso, like as your point guard. That's laughable. Like, and then he's looking like Steve Nash out there because LeBron makes everybody that much better.
All right.
So, hey, listen, put LeBron or AD in the Heat right now, they'll be the favorite to win the NBA title.
Okay.
Get the big 3, bro.
So let's look at some of these. Let's look at some of these playoff matchups. You guys clearly think the Lakers are going to beat the Suns. Dick, let's go to you. Who comes out of the Heat Bucks series on top?
Oh God, that's my favorite one to watch right now, even more so than the Lakers and the Suns. Yeah, the Bucks were supposed to just wipe the floor with the Heat last year, and it went the other way. And the Bucks are such a talented team, and I love the Greek Freak. You'd like to think that they learned a lesson from last year, or is it a matter of do the Heat have their number? It's one of those weird situations.
Mm-hmm.
Because on paper, you look at Milwaukee. Milwaukee should be fucking cakewalking their way to the finals.
Big time.
And they put so many resources into what they have, just to keep the Greek Freak. They're like, we'll pay the luxury tax, which, by the way, I love. It's ownership group saying, you know what? We don't give a fuck about the team profits because the team is making money. We've got all this shit coming in. We want a winner here in Milwaukee. Fuck yeah. That's how you run a fucking team in this modern age. You're a fucking billionaire already. So anyway, they've got the horses, they've got the team, but mentally, can they get over the toughness of the Heat? That to me is the key. Because the Miami Heat, to me, are one of the most mentally tough teams in the entire world of basketball.
So who's your pick?
I don't have one right now. I honestly got
I think it's so tough, and honestly, they just played the Heat a week ago. They beat them by 20, but I think
that was a week ago, and that was
purposely. Postage papers like, listen, I'm not showing you my hand because we're already seated at number
That's
6.
what I'm saying. Like, to me, that was a fucking
Jimmy Butler and Milwaukee threw all their stars out there.
Yeah.
Besides Jimmy Butler, they were playing all these people, so they were like, okay, we're not gonna do this right now, but we'll do it on the first game.
And on that same note, Rob, and this is why I like Spoelstra. I've gained so much more respect for Spoelstra over the last 10 years. He has definitely learned, from the master that Pat Riley is. Fucking the Bucks put out all their stars. He's like, I don't give a fuck. You know what I'm going to do instead is like watch what you're doing with your stars, and that's how come I can't make a read on this series.
Exactly. Now, I honestly, I can't read it either. But what should take Milwaukee over the hump is the fact that they did some nice off-season signings.
They did.
They signed Holiday, which you could lock down. I forgot who else they signed. So their team on paper, you look at them, you're like, man, this is a lot better team than the Miami Heat.
Well, and
mental toughness, it's crazy.
Well,
they're gonna go with Jimmy Buckets out there and Bam, and they don't mess around, dude. They're physical, and then they're kind of like a mini Golden State. They love to shoot it to these kids, Duncan Robinson and Hero from the outside.
Mm-hmm.
And if that gets going, Milwaukee could be in trouble. If Milwaukee's down 2 games to none, they're done.
Oh yeah.
They're gonna think like, oh shit, they got a number. Because basketball is a matchup game for sure. It's like boxing.
Yeah.
Right now,
yeah.
Pick the paper, the team with the best talent. But I'm kind of leaning Heat. I'm honestly, I wanted to throw $100 on the Heat because they're 3,000 to 1 to win the NBA title. Check this out. They won against the Lakers last year. 6 games, missing Bam and Dragic.
Mm-hmm.
The first 4 games of the series. So,
I mean,
because if you win $3,000.
Yeah, I made bank on that Lakers and Miami series by like picking the right team to fade the Lakers on. Because Miami was so fucking tough in that series. And the counter to, Spoelstra sitting back, give him respect on this. He's like, I'm just going to watch what they're doing. The other thing that Milwaukee might have been doing is going, hey, assholes, this is what we got. You think you can stop this when we get to the playoffs? Like, there's also that. It looks like it's going to be a fun chess game. Yeah. I'm really hoping that's what it is.
All right. We got to move on, boys. Got to move on. Clippers and the Mavericks.
I got Clipper Nation here. I think, honestly, I'm being very honest with you. I think the Clippers have to go to the Western Conference Finals. If not, Kawhi Leonard, that team is going to get broken apart.
Yeah.
Either you're going to see Kawhi Leonard in a Heat uniform or in a Golden State uniform. One of those teams that's looking for the next superstar. You're going to see Kawhi Leonard out. I know he's an LA native, but they need to take it that far because last year the bubble was a disaster.
Yeah.
And
I agree.
And I think the Clippers come out strong. They have a super good team still. And I think they beat Dallas easily. Not easily, but I think at least 5 games.
Yeah, I see it going 4-1.
Yeah, correct.
If it went a sweep for the Clippers, I wouldn't be surprised.
No, I wouldn't be surprised either.
I expect Dallas to claw out at least 1 win. The thing for the Clippers is to get over that second round hump that's been their problem forever. And if they don't get past the second round this time, Kawhi's got the out in his contract. What's he going to do? Is he going to say, fuck it, and I'm going to go to Miami? Do I go to the Lakers? Do I go to Golden State? The Knicks? Do I go, the Knicks? The Knicks are an intriguing. They're an intriguing
and that's
team.
someone that I wanted to bring over in our podcast because the world keeps talking. Everybody wanted to see that blue and orange come back to the basketball world, man.
Let's do that right now. Let's do that right now. Let's talk Knicks Hawks, which might be the most exciting of the first round series. Sean, give me your opinion on the Knicks Hawks.
First of all, the fact that like the Knicks are like
Woo!
all of my New York friends.
Love it.
Fans are like, yeah, the fucking Knicks are back.
They're back.
And they're fucking back. And it's like when I was living in New York back in the what 2000s, everybody was talking. They were still talking about like shady God stars. They still wanted to bring up those '90s Riley teams. So the fact that they're like,
those were great teams, dude.
They were, but they couldn't get over the fucking hump.
No.
And the fact that like Julius Randle is like blowing up.
Yeah.
Oh my God, awesome. Lakers drafted him, but listen, I heard Jalen Rose from Jalen and Jacoby. This is super crazy because Jacoby told him, "Man, what's up, those Knicks? You know, if they come back, Brooklyn's no one's gonna be talking about Brooklyn."
Right.
Back up. I kind of disagree.
Let me finish. And Jalen goes, "You know why I know you're right? You know those little dive bars you showed me around town? I went to one of them last weekend. And let me tell you what I saw. I sat on the bar and I got a drink. And in one section, they had the live Brooklyn game. And in the other section, they had the replay of the Knicks game. And the whole bar was watching the Knicks game. People weren't even paying attention to Brooklyn." He goes, "Now I know how diehard Knicks fans New York City too. They're the Yankees of basketball."
Oh yeah.
I mean, are you kidding me? Like, this is insane if they come back. But granted, they have a tough road. Milwaukee's good. I mean, we could go on with the Knicks for a while, but the East has gotten pretty decent.
Well, are the Knicks going to get past the Hawks? Because the Hawks got a good young team.
I think they'll get past the Hawks, and I love the Hawks players, dude. They got some, Trey Young and some of the guys they have.
Yeah.
But just the fact that I think Julius Randle's playing and also Tom Thibodeau has that team playing like real defense.
Yeah.
Kind of like suffocating defense. I think this is why, and I think they get home court. If I'm not correct, they might get home court.
Yeah.
So this is why I'm picking the Knicks, and they're riding that nice wave with that defense, and I think they're going to take a line in 6 games.
Sean, what do you think?
I think the Knicks are going to take this series. The energy that they're coming off of, it's something you don't see very often. The Knicks have been so bad for so fucking long.
Yeah. All right. Let's go back to the West real quick. A couple more matchups. Blazers and the Nuggets.
If Jamal Murray was playing
Nuggets.
Yeah. But Jokic, I don't know why we're not talking about this guy being the shooting MVP.
Yeah.
What else does this guy have to do? Like, what else? If he was American, they would have handed him the MVP already.
Yeah.
This guy leads. He's top 5 in points, top 5 in rebounds, top 5 in assists. He is as smooth as butter. So I think the Joker's gonna make it tough. They're gonna make it tough. So I think, but you know what? They're not fully healthy, so I might have to go with the Trailblazers, bro.
Yep, Sean.
Yeah, I have to agree with Rob on that simply because of the injury factor. If Joker is able to carry them through to the next round, God bless him. They should just say fucking give him the MVP.
He should get it.
Yeah, he should. And it amazes me that he gets as little talk as he does, even though people are like, "Oh no, I respect him very much." It's like, fuck that, put your money where your mouth is and say this guy. End of fucking story.
Yep.
And you look at his numbers, and as you already brought up, it's fucking mind-boggling, like what this guy is doing. And then when you see him play, and like watching him, like in the playoffs last year, it was like fucking heads turning.
Yeah.
Heads turning. You know what he reminded me of was Arvidas Sabonis.
I love watching Sabonis play. Great passer.
And not just Sabonis when he was with the Trailblazers toward the end of his career, but footage that you would see of Sabonis when he was playing for the Soviet Union, like back in the day when he was in his prime. Like Joker is that fucking good with his court vision, his passing, the ability to shoot, get inside and slide here and over and come up and everything with him is it's almost like watching a ballet.
But
Yeah, in terms of
I got Harden just because Jamal Murray's injury.
Okay, and what would have been a really intriguing matchup, a year ago maybe, but the Celtics and the Nets. Rob, who do you think comes out of that series? Celtics and the Nets.
Yeah, I mean, Celtics injuries are just, but listen, Boston still has a very strong team. I know they don't have what they want to have. I think Jalen Brown's injury takes them out of the equation. But the Nets play no defense. Let's be frank about this. They play no defense. So Boston, great coach team. Tatum plays playing lights out. We saw him last game just go off for like 50 points. I think Brooklyn comes out ahead because of the injuries, but it will not surprise me if it's a little bit tougher than what people think it's really going to come out to be. You know what I mean? I think it's going to.
Yeah, that's the thing. I can see it being either 5 or 6 games on that one. I think Boston is a much better coach team. Nash is nowhere near the league of Brad Stevens, but the amount of talent that's available and healthy on the Nets puts him way above Boston. Boston is going to tactically find a way to get themselves at least 1, if not 2 wins in the series. But the Nets are just going to overwhelm them. I mean, if you want to make some easy money, I would put it on the Nets on the money line for the series.
Okay.
I would take that and walk away with it.
And the matchup just got fixed tonight. Philadelphia versus Washington. Washington's the play-in. Yeah. Well,
I like them both, but I just don't trust Bradley Beal and Westbrook. It's like kind of like an ugly combo.
yeah.
Like, it's kind of weird combo. They both like love the ball too much. You know what I mean? It's not like they're having Bradley Beal and Anthony Davis.
Right.
It's just that it's a weird chemistry.
It's a bad combo.
It's a bad combo. So to me, I don't see that team going anywhere. Bradley Beal, it's going to be a free agent, and teams are going to come after him.
Yeah.
I mean, I can see them having over the course of the 7-game series, I can see the 2 of those guys having 2 games where they actually mesh well, like they just did. But that was also against the depleted Indiana team. Now you're going to be fucking running into this.
Not going to happen. All right. So just a couple more topics to go. Have you guys thought much about a playoff sleeper? A playoff sleeper.
I got the Heat because as a 6th seed, I think they went to the finals. I think they're kind of gassed out like the Lakers. That turnaround kind of gassed them out too and created injuries. But if they get past Milwaukee, I think they are the best defensive team in the East. I think that they beat the number 1 seed Philadelphia 76ers by like 25 points like 7 days ago with all their starters playing together. And they both needed a game to win, so they beat them. It's easy. So I got the Heat as a sleeper, and I'm not talking from like fandom or anything. I think that well coach, Bose is like maybe top 3 coach in the NBA. Not top 2. You're talking about Kerr, Pop, and they're bringing that playoff mentality. They and the Lakers took it to the finals last year, so yeah, I got the Heat as sleeper. To be honest.
Sean.
Yeah, I got a bunch of sleepers in here, and they're actually some of the younger teams.
Dude, you can only have one. You can only have one sleeper. Yeah.
All right, my one sleeper, I'll take it from the left. Utah. Utah is super dangerous. They shoot the ball well. 31-5 at home. You never know what's going to come from these younger teams like that when they get put into these pressure situations. But looking at their track record over the season, who the fuck knows?
Mm-hmm.
If I got to take a sleeper, I'm going to go for a fucking long one. Go ahead and get into Jazz. And my second one on that would be the Bucks. And the Bucks are considered a favorite, but like you, Rob, can they get past the Heat? That to me is the most intriguing matchup.
I think if they get past the Heat, I think they're going to go to the finals in the East. I think they beat Brooklyn. I think they beat Brooklyn. But if they don't get past the Heat, I think the Heat are coming out. I don't think Brooklyn's coming out. I think Brooklyn's going to realize the defense they're going to face. So this.
Oh no, and I agree with you. If the Heat and the Nets get together, the Heat will mind fuck the Nets out of the building. They will.
I hope we get a chance to see that matchup. All right, before we call it a night, I like the idea of me springing something on you guys without putting it into the outline. I'm sure you've heard that Marv Albert is retiring after 40 years. How's Marv? Yeah, how's Marv Albert going to be remembered, or what do you remember Marv Albert from? Rob, your thoughts on Marv Albert in his retirement? Yes. Sean, remember that?
And that sonorous tonal voice, like it was always hilarious. And I never not had fun with a Marv Albert game, but obviously he's been like falling off like the last couple of years. It's like, but fuck you, Rob. The greatest basketball voice ever is chick.
Correct. I mean, on the local, Marv Albert was calling cable games. This is what I mean by that. He heard the voice of the Lakers, and he did call. I mean, they hired him many times to call national games, but he stayed true to the Lakers. Marv Albert, when you're talking about like TNT games and all this crap, I think he's probably the best ever in the business. There's so many good. Ian Eagle's really good.
Mm-hmm.
The guy at ESPN that just went into the Hall of Fame,
Mike Breen. Is it Mike Breen?
Breen is great.
Yeah.
There's just so many good ones. But yeah, Jake Hearn. And then got Portland with Billy and Hearn.
I just get a kick out of Marv because it turns out that he was like a demented pervert.
Right.
So many other people out there, but he could call it hell of a game.
And wasn't he wearing women's panties when that all went down? I think when he attacked the hooker, he was wearing. And you know what's? Hey, God bless America. People talk shit about our country, but that motherfucker's star had fallen so quickly. We let a year or two go by, and then that star started rising again, like Michael Vick's, right? People fuck up on our country, and they make amends, and they give their repentance, but we allow them back in, and I think Marv Albert's a good example of that. Oscar was floating around with women's underwear, too. Okay. Well,
Hey, listen, innocent is pretty guilty, as they always say.
All right, boys, let's stick around. We'll chat afterwards, but that was good times, and we'll do it again next week.